Running is one of the most foundational movements that we can learn to execute well. Whether you're brand new to running or a well-seasoned athlete looking to squeeze out every ounce of power, this video is going to have a little something for everyone. In this video, we are going to break down 5 different techniques that will help to improve both your strength and performance so you can be well on your way to setting a new personal best. So without further ado, let's jump straight into this one. All right, so for our first technique, we're going to be coming down to the ground and we're going to be working a alternating glute bridge. You can do this either single leg, which is preferable, but is a more challenging option here. Or you can do it with both legs, which will be a little bit easier. It'll provide a similar feedback, but ideally you want to start to progress to the single leg variation. So what we're going to do is come onto your back. I'm going to try to find a spot that's not so damp. And you're going to take your hands on your hips and you can go over some of the breathing that we have done in the past. And you're going to think about kind of broadening the shoulders, getting length through the spine. And then I'm going to take my feet out so my knees are kind of on this angle here. And what we're going to start with is I'm just going to try to keep some pressure. I'll take my hips up. And immediately, you should feel the hamstrings come online in this position. This in of itself might be enough, and you could just hold that position for anywhere between 5 to 10 seconds, and then you could take the hips down. So I can come up, I could hold for 5, I feel my hamstrings connect there, and then I can just take my hips back down. The more advanced variation to this is going to be me taking my knee up this way, at the same time that my hips come up. So if I'm going to keep my right leg planted, this is definitely the weaker of my legs, I'm going to slowly take my knee up at the same time that my knee comes up. And then my leg's going to come down and my hips are going to track back down. This foot will stay off the ground, and then I'm just going to go through that again. And right back down. And that is going to provide a lot of feedback into things like the hamstring, which is going to be necessary for the more dynamic exercises that we're going to get into. What I would suggest is probably work about 8 to 10 repetitions on either side, or if you're doing the 2-leg variation, same thing, work about 8 to 10 repetitions there. Alrighty, so as usual, we tuck the shirt in. And what we're going to do for this next one is we're going to get into a switch lunge. So if you're not familiar with lunges, the loading process, and the tension involved, I will recommend some videos that you can check out in the description box below, because this is definitely going to be the more dynamic variation of it. So we're going to kind of take the hamstring tension that we were working on in our previous exercise. We'll make that a little bit more dynamic. So I'm going to work down into my lunge. Now, as I come up, I'm just going to do a switch kind of at the midpoint, and I'm going to land on the opposite side. So I'll go from here, and then I'm over. Come up, and then I'm over. Ideally, this back knee isn't going to touch. So I'm just going to kind of absorb that momentum down, and then I'll spring myself right back up. So I'll go from here, switch, switch. And you can see my body weight kind of drops. I'm just kind of loading and unloading as I go through that. I'm kind of doing a circle here, so you get an idea of what this looks like from multiple angles. And you can see that my arms are staying involved with this as well. And that is taking that hamstring tension. We're starting to link it to the quads, which is going to help us a lot with the phase of extension, specifically in our running. As well as anything that's a little bit more dynamic or explosive such as this, will definitely translate to our running in a really favorable way. Alrighty, so for this next exercise, instead of moving so much vertically like we were with our switch lunge, we're going to ideally take some of that power and use it to propel ourselves horizontally. So we're going to work through some single leg broad jumps here. Just to preface this exercise, if you're not familiar with our split stance or unilateral positioning, which is essentially just one leg in front of the other. Again, I will reference some videos below and you can check out kind of what that should specifically feel like in that position, because that is going to be really important here. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna come into my split stance position, and I'm gonna get myself loaded on this right side. Because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna propel myself forward through extension on my right hip. I'm gonna land, and then what I'll do is I'm gonna turn around and I'm just gonna work the other way. You can obviously just do this in one continuous field or pathway, but in order for me to stay in frame, I'm just gonna do it back and forth. So I'm getting myself loaded here, and I'm putting quite a bit of weight into this right leg so that when I launch myself, whoop, I'm out of frame. That is gonna be kind of the initial propulsion system that takes me through that. So maybe I'll dial it back a touch just so you can see the landing. So I go boom, boom. I'm gonna turn this around, switch to my right leg, jump, boom, boom. Go left side. Now I'm loading on my left leg, jump, boom, boom. And you can make this really dynamic in the sense that I'm gonna jump. We'll see if I go from here, and I go 1, 2, I'm already on my right side again, and I can go straight into that. So I can just do it one continuous motion on that right side. I'd work maybe about 10 to 12 reps, trying to build momentum and increase the distance as I go through. Then you turn yourself around and you go the other way. And not only are we working on the output of power through extension, but we're also working on some elements of deceleration here as well. When I catch myself with that 1, 2, I'm catching and absorbing that to then reutilize it to take myself back into the elements of power, which is exactly what happens when we're running. I kind of load, then I switch it to the other side, then I unload, load, then I unload, and the upper body is of course involved with that. We're just primarily working on our lower body for these first few exercises. All right, so for this next exercise, we're gonna take some of the elements of the power we were working on in our previous 2 exercises, and we're gonna start to link the upper body a little bit to this with some interval high knees. So what this is gonna look like is I'm gonna start just quickly kind of touching the ground with my toes. So if you can imagine, these are my feet. I'm just kind of springing my feet onto the ground, and that is what's gonna pop my knee up. So it's just kind of a quick pop from my toes, and my knee comes up. If you just want to get even used to how that spring kind of feels from one side to the other, just kind of get the gist of that. Because then, once I get going, that's what I'm going to want to try to work on. It's kind of that rhythm with my feet. Once we get the rhythm, let's start to get the arms going. So the arms should feel pretty intuitive here. I shouldn't have to like go like this or anything with them. Just kind of let them move with the legs. And then once I'm here, I'm gonna go about 15 seconds, steady state. After about 15 seconds, what I'm gonna get you to do is we're gonna do a 15-second work period. So now I'm gonna really start to spring from the ground. I'm not gonna go the full 15, so I will burn myself out. Then the idea is I go back to my rest. So now I'm 15 seconds here. After my 15-second recovery, I'm back to my work. So you're working a 1-to-1 ratio. Go for about a minute, minute and a half. That's gonna work the elements of power. It's also gonna work those fast twitch fibers, and it's gonna get your heart rate going like crazy, which is also a good thing for when even if we're doing a sprint or a long distance run, doing these higher work output exercises is really good for both of those. So for our 5th and final exercise, we're gonna work through some incline running. So you can do this outdoors like I am doing here, just kind of running up the side of a trail. You can do it up a mountain. If you're really brave, you can do it up just a local hill that you might have around your place. Even running on a treadmill that is, say, on like a 12 or 13 incline would also work too. Or if you got one of those curved treadmills, you can just like prop up the front side. And that'll give you the same sort of idea. And what's great about incline running is it takes all the elements of the exercises we have worked up until this point, and it provides it in one shot in a very intense fashion. alongside the fact that we also tend to get more posterior chain or backside body activation when we are running on an incline. You may find things like your hamstrings and your glutes, potentially even the calves, they have to work a little bit harder because we're running on that incline. And what I really like about this is the more that you can start to think about opening your stride up or taking longer strides when you're running up a hill, the more that is going to transfer to a longer stride when you resort back to flat ground. And what I have found in my personal experience, as well as working with clients, is that when I get them to run on incline for an extended period of time and then take them back to flat ground, their time tends to increase quite substantially. And the reason for that, I think, is because the feedback that they're getting through that posterior side of their body has significantly increased. And then when they go back to their regular running, it's almost as if you're running downhill at that point because you've kind of beaten yourself up with a hill. So incline running, really, really good and beneficial if you're looking to improve your sprint or your long distance run time. Anyways, that is going to be all for this video on how to improve your running speed / really just how to improve your running. If you put these exercises to the test, if you implement them a few times a week, I can almost assure you that you will see some improvements in your running. So hope you found the video helpful and useful. If you did, don't be afraid to throw this video a like and a subscribe to the channel, as that just helps me to continue to make videos like this for you guys. Until next time, make sure you are prioritizing and then you are optimizing for you. I will catch you guys in the next one. Hopefully we're still in the forest. I'll see you then. Peace.